What I want to do for people is to let them feel like they're winning. And that's why I don't define what a win is. This isn't like a how-to of how to be successful, right? I'm not telling you get up at 5, have a green shake, run for 4 miles, read 12 pages. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you define what a win is.
This episode is sponsored by Southern Utah Safe and Vault. It's one-stop shop, buy, education, delivery, everything you need with the safe or a vault door. Website is safesfirst.com. Their showroom is 1397 West, Sunset Boulevard, number 115 in St. George, Utah. Phone number is 435-767-7878. Hey guys, welcome back to the Derick Leg podcast. We are in the vault today. And we've got a local guest here. Most of our guests are local, but we've kind of got one that's on the up and coming. You're doing big things. You kind of did something that I'm a little jealous of. This is Cody Adent. Cody has wrote a book. He's coming in. We're going to talk a lot about the book. That's what a lot of our focus is going to be. And dude, I've only read a few books, to be honest. Okay, but like writing a book is like something that I think super cool. I don't know. I think before I die, I'll probably write a book.
It was one of my bucket list things for my life, for sure.
Yeah. So tell me about it, dude. Let's get into, give me a little blip on the book, then let's backstory, and then let's just dive into the book.
Okay. So I'd say if I was to give you a little blip, Winning the Moment is basically a book that allows you the ability to discover that you can achieve anything that you want, and you can do it through small incremental improvements, right? And that ultimately, at the end of the day, you're in charge of your success, nobody else. I think too often we allow society to predicate our value, and the only people who determine our value is us. And I think that's kind of been lost. And so it helps people refocus and recalibrate and realize that you get to determine what success looks like, no one else.
Where do you think that comes from? Is that like an ownership thing? Is that a blame victim? Where do you think that comes from?
I hate victims, right? Like I can't handle people who, like I used to have these sales reps and they would always give me an excuse for like why they didn't have a good day. It was slow or this or that. And it's like, well, you can't fix that, so I can't help you. So let's focus on something that you could have done better. And let's start there. And so I realize, I think being in sales and being in sports, like you can only progress if you actually see the opportunities within yourself. Because if you're always looking outwardly for a reason why you're not wherever it is that you want to be, you're never going to get there because it has to start with you.
There you go. Love that, dude. So give me a little backstory, and then we'll dive into the book and your favorite parts and why. And
okay, so I grew up in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So I'm really lucky that my family wanted to move here in high school because I thought Cheyenne was awesome until I left and realized like, man, there's a lot of better stuff out there. Sorry to all those people in Cheyenne who are listening, but it's true. And I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Like I started all night midnight bar in second grade in my basement. I had a movie theater. I would go pick weeds. I'd sell the stuff in my wagon to my neighbors, like whatever it was. Like I was always on that grind. And I also had a huge sports background. So I played every sport possible as a kid. My dad was always my coach. My teams were really, really good. I never was particularly good. So I had to also work really hard to be able to be good and be a part of the team, you know? One of my favorite stories is in the championship in sixth grade. We grew up in Wyoming, like I said, but we'd play in Colorado because the competition was better. So we were playing in Fort Collins and it was the championship and it was a close game and there's like maybe 2 minutes left and my dad subs me in. And I'm like, yes, this is my moment. You know, like this is awesome. I go in, the guy's shooting free throws. And then at the end of his free throws, I get subbed back out. And he just wanted to tell our best player like what the strategy was for the next 2 minutes.
You're the messenger.
Yeah. So I was just his reprieve so we could have that moment to tell our best player what the play was going to be. But I wore that championship shirt with pride the next day.
Yeah.
You know, I was a part of the team.
You were part of it.
Yep, absolutely. So that's really where I learned like the value of winning and losing. And then came to St. George in high school and really fell in love with it. Continued my entrepreneurial spirit. Started my first business here right after high school on Bluff Street by the old Crazy Bob's called The Cell Phone Guy.
Okay.
Got lucky and sold that in 2008 before the recession. So I could tell the story like I knew it was coming, but really it was just some fortuitous signs, and I was able to exit that, got into the corporate world and learned a bunch. And then I still had that entrepreneurial drive. So started a marketing company with a couple of my best friends in Houston. And then once my son was born, it was like, all right, it's time to get back home to St. George. And that's what brought me here and ultimately brought me to my company now, which is Vibrant Management.
That's awesome. I want to tie it together a little bit. So I know your wife. I went to school with your wife. We've had a lot of people from our class on the podcast, is why I want to bring that up.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, so Megan Whitbeck would be her maiden name.
Correct.
So it's kind of funny, all the people you know, but you don't know, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I was telling you before the episode, I never had Instagram because I'm not a big believer in social media. I think that it can cause more damage than good. But when you've got a platform like we do and you're trying to reach people, it is the best way to do that, right? If you've got a business, I understand it's this necessary evil, but it's actually been really cool because I've been able to connect with people like yourself who I wouldn't have ever known, right? And then also for the people back in Wyoming, like as far as they knew, I was dead, because I disappeared for 20 years. So it's been really cool to see like what my childhood friends are up to in their lives. And so I've been able to see the good side of it, which has been really, really fun.
Something that's cool about the social medias, and like I was that way with TikTok. I thought TikTok was stupid. And then we had a guest come on, Cade. He was maybe 6th or 7th episode. So he was fairly early. And he was like, you guys don't have a TikTok? You got to, and he's like 6'5", I don't know. He's big, biker, beard. Okay. And he had a TikTok and he was killing it. And he was like, you got to get on. And I was against it because I'm like, no, it's like 12-year-old girls doing dances, right?
Right.
And so we ended up getting on it. And it's like probably the best platform that we're on as far as interaction.
I believe it. I mean, it's algorithms killing it. Yeah. And I know that it's got a big purpose. In my company, we do social media for our clients and stuff. And we're able to get so much reach. In fact, we've got, I'm partners in an e-bike business out in Zion called Greater Zion E-Bikes. And we had one of our reels, almost 7 million views now on Instagram. And it's like, we could have never had enough money to get 7 million eyeballs on our business, So it obviously plays a super important and vital role. And even for me with the book now, like I'm engaging with all these people around the world that without it, I could have never done that.
Exactly. And even on Facebook, Instagram, you have paid advertisement, but like TikTok, we haven't paid $1. In fact, TikTok's paying us from the views that we have.
That's great.
And it's like, so I have a retail store. Southern Utah Safe and Vault is like my day job.
Okay.
We sell gun safes, vault doors, that kind of thing. And all the advertising we do, I've cut everything and I've gone straight to social media because all the direct mailing stuff's nonsense.
Yeah.
At least for what we do. Radio stations, I don't think it's ever gotten me one sell. But then we've had like the Tag and Go guys on here who we also went to school with.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think, and Quinn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like their number one thing. But it makes sense. Like you're in a car listening to the radio and then you pull into a car wash.
I could see how for them it would be different. But yeah, for all of our clients, it's all driven through Google ads and then organic and paid social advertisement. I mean, that's where the eyeballs are. It's where the audience is.
Yeah. Yeah. And back to what I was getting at was like, you had that 7 million views. Like you were saying, you never could have sent out direct mailers to 7 million people.
No,
right?
Not for free.
Right. Yeah, the dollar amount for that would be
astronomical.
It wouldn't even make sense.
No, not at all.
So yeah, dude, social media, it can be very detrimental. It can be very negative. I think for maybe younger, undeveloped minds, it is because they don't understand the backside of it. But at the same time, with the algorithms, you can almost stack what you're viewing to what you want it to be to an extent.
No, you're totally. I mean, if you look at my like search field on my thing now, it's all books.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to connect with people who are in that space, and I was reading an Eckhart Tolle book today. He's one of my favorite authors. And he said, happiness isn't about your situation. It's about your thoughts about the situation. And I was like, damn, that's good. Because that's what social media is.
Yep.
It's not the social media that makes you unhappy. It's you thinking that, oh, look at this person. Look what they have. Look what I don't have. It's how we think about what we're seeing.
Yeah.
That creates our unhappiness. So at the end of the day, it's about us.
Yep.
So I think if you're strong mentally, then it's not going to have a negative impact on you. But if you're vulnerable to that, then I'd say, be cautious. Just like alcohol. If you got a good, healthy life, I think you can have a couple drinks and it's fine. But if you don't, you probably shouldn't have that, So I think social media is probably the same way.
Yeah, and maybe I misspoke. It's probably not an age thing as much as a maturity thing.
Yeah, you're totally right. Absolutely.
Because I would imagine there's a lot of people our age and older that probably shouldn't be on a lot of the social medias because they're getting fed things that they shouldn't look at.
Oh, it makes them angry, you know?
Yeah, and vice versa. I mean, I've noticed that with like our podcast TikTok versus my personal TikTok. Like mine's like guns, hunting, cars, and then the podcast is like business, books, other podcasts. And it's funny how the two are like they're technically both me. But but they're so different on what they're viewing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so tell me about Winning the Moment. Why is that the title? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so it all started in 2018. So in 2018, I'd always been successful professionally. Like anything I've done, I've been successful. But what I realized is like, man, I'm never successful for myself. Like if you were my boss and you said be at the vault shop at 6 a.m., I would obviously be there at 6. I would never wake up and be like, I think I'm going to snooze.
Yeah.
I'll just be late or I won't do it. Maybe I just won't go. But for myself, that's what I would do. Like if I was going to say, I'm going to go to the gym at 6, I was never going to go. You know, I just wasn't. And so I was like, gosh, why am I able to show up for other people, but I can't show up for myself? Like, how can I break this nasty habit, right? Because if we're not showing up for ourselves, we're not going to be the best version for the people that we're trying to show up for anyways. And so what I realized for me, reward systems and accountability work. So I just made a spreadsheet that was super basic. I had all the things that mattered to me. Like I had a weigh-in on there. Did I read or not? I wanted to read 24 books in the year. So I had 24 open spots with a rating and what day started, what day finished, how many pages I did, what I rated it. And then I had, did I drink or not? Did I exercise or not? Did I meditate or not? Did I read or not? And it was just a simple yes or no.
Yeah.
Yes, it went green. Red, it went no. And that allowed me to have the best year, like individually that I've ever had. I lost 40 pounds. I was super healthy. I was reading all these books. I was filling my mind. I was filling my body. I was filling my soul. Like everything that I needed to be the best version of myself I was doing. And I was like, wow, this is amazing, you know? So in January, I did a post on LinkedIn. And I've already said, obviously, I wasn't big on social media. So if I did a post on LinkedIn, you get like maybe 5 or 7 likes, like, you know, your mom, your dad, and then and then a few people you worked with. And so I did this post with a before and after picture. And I said, hey, for those of you out here who are, I'd imagine most of you on here succeed professionally. But if any of you are following sport personally, let me share my story. This is what I did. And it blew up like Tony Robbins style, like 250,000 views, all these likes, like over 500 comments, people from all over the world. And I said, like, I'll send you my spreadsheet for free if you want it, you know? And so I sent it over, like, I don't know, 100 plus people asked for the spreadsheet. And someone would message me like throughout the year and be like, look what I did. Like, I'm already down 20 pounds. This is awesome. And so it was great. And so that though was 2020, January of 2020. And then March hit and I'm in hospitality. And so when COVID happened, we got just absolutely brutalized, you know, in hospitality, and my company being in hospitality, all of our clients let us go. And so we didn't know if we're going to have a future. And like, we're so new that it's like, we may never be able to come back. You know, you didn't know at the time. And so I allowed myself to be a victim and played like the poor me. And I just stopped everything because my gym closed and like all the reasons they're all excuses. It's all bullshit. But you know, all the things I said to myself to feel better about it. And I stopped doing it all. And then I got into this role as the executive director of the Utah Tourism Industry Association as I kind of pivoted. Well, Vibrant was kind of unsure what was going to happen. And I had this speaker come to our tourism conference who wrote the book. His name's Will Bowen, and he wrote the book Complaint Free World. And his philosophy was like, if you ever complain, that bracelet you have on your wrist, one like that, you'd move it from one wrist to the other to like remind yourself mentally, like, don't do that, you know, because that causes bad habits. And I thought like, hey, that could work. I could see that. And I've been doing all this research on psychology and how we can be better and willpower. And so I just brought that spreadsheet to life, and I realized there's about 10 decisions a day that you can go one or either direction that'll change the direction of your day, right? Like when your alarm clock goes off, do you snooze it or do you get up? That's the moment one, right? And it's hard as a person to say like, I'm never going to sleep in again for the rest of my life. That's too daunting. Because then once you miss it, you're like, screw it. Like I already blew it. So whatever. And so I realized that we need to shift the focus to say, I'm going to wake up this morning, not every day for the rest of my life, but this morning when my alarm goes off, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to win that moment, right? That's it. Just that one moment in time. And then so much of what we do in life is for dopamine anyways. Like you go into the break room at work, you look around, you grab a Snickers, you eat it, and then you're like, oh, damn it. Like I don't even know why I ate that. It's because we just wanted the dopamine. We just wanted a break. And so when you move these bracelets, right, from one wrist to the other, it creates that dopamine. So you're replacing a negative habit with a positive one, and you're getting what you were actually sought after anyways, just like that sense of winning. And momentum works whatever direction you're going in life. If you got positive momentum and you're going forward, it'll be behind you. And if you have negative momentum, you get into a bad spell, it'll spin that way too. So we're just creating the dynamic to move forward in a positive way.
Dang, man, that's awesome. I love the wristband thing. I've never heard of that before.
Oh, yeah. It's been a game changer for me.
But it makes sense. It's like, I thought you were going to say, like flick yourself with it or something.
Yeah.
I've seen
like
that
a rubber
before.
band. Yeah, yeah.
And then I noticed you have like multiple of them on both sides.
Yeah, I've got 10. So they say, or I say, I guess, that we're like a cell phone, right? So we wake up, we're fully charged. As the day goes down, so does our willpower. So it's like why a Mark Zuckerberg wears the same thing every day, because he knows there's only an infinite amount of good decisions he can make. So if he removes what he's going to wear off the table, that's one less decision that he has to make, right? And that's why I believe happy hour is at 5 and not at 2, because it's easier to say yes at 5 or at 9 or, you know what I mean, whatever time it is. And so I needed something to help me at the end of the day, because I generally made good decisions pretty much from the morning to about like 6 or 7. I was making good decisions. But once the kids are asleep and it's finally my time, it's like I'll have some ice cream, or I'll have a cookie, or maybe I'll put some couple of glasses of whiskey down, you know, and it's like, and then that perpetuates to the following day. Because if I have some whiskey and then I'm like, oh, well, I'm not tired, so I'll watch a little bit of Netflix. And then it's 2:00 in the morning. The next morning I'm waking up, I'm tired. I don't want to get up early. I don't have like that positive energy. I can't be as good of a father, or I can't be as good of a husband. And so I needed something to help me at the end of the day, where it was like, okay, it's more than just this one cookie. And so now, like you can see, I've got 3 bracelets left. And so most likely one of them will be not having that whiskey. And then the other one will probably be reading tonight, and then this one will be in bed before 10, because I know I can win the day if I win the evening. Because if I end my day well, then I can start tomorrow great.
Yeah, I like that. Taking the win from the day before is what sets you up for the next day.
And also it's okay. Sometimes I won't move them all, right? Like I'm not striving for perfection. I'm just trying to make as many good decisions as I can, because if I do that, I'm ultimately going to win in time.
So not put you on the spot, but are there days that you lose more than you win?
Oh yeah, like on a weekend, you know, it's like sometimes and they're on my wrist, but it's almost like you forget about it, you know, and then it's like 6:00 and you've moved 2 and you're like, oh shit, you know, but that's okay. Cause then I realized, all right, I got to do it. I've dialed my routine during the week. I got to work on my routine a little bit on the weekends, and I'm not trying to live a life that's so regimented without freedom, but I do want to be able to make the best decisions I can as often as I can. And this is what's helped me do that.
Yeah, I think that the reason I put that out there was like, I don't think you're supposed to be perfect at it.
Oh,
but
no.
It's about doing your best.
Right.
And having that thought process of that decision of making the positive decision.
Well, and even like if let's say you started winning the moment today, and tomorrow you only move 2 bracelets, it's like, okay, that's the reality. Those are the facts of life. Too often we try and make life be something that it isn't, right? It's a lie we tell ourselves. But it's like, if you really did only make 2 good decisions, that's okay, because you're just starting. And tomorrow, if you make 3, well, that's progress, you know? And so I just want to help people be continuing to move forward. And there's actually a thing. So it's called the winner effect. It's proven scientifically that when you win, there's a chemical reaction in your brain that like kind of feeds the desire to win again and the belief you'll win again. It's like, you know, when teams go on like a winning streak or a hot streak, that's what's happening. It's the winner effect on our brain. And so they did tests on mice, and they found that if they had 2 mice fight, whichever mouse won would win the next fight every single time. And eventually the other mouse would just stop showing up. Right. And so you think about like dynasties and organizations, and people are just killing it. Like Trevor, for example, with Real Business Owners podcast, they have the winner effect going. So they always know it's going to work now. Like every podcast is going to be great because they've just got it. They've just got their momentum. And so what I want to do for people is to let them feel like they're winning. And that's why I don't define what a win is. This isn't like a how-to of how to be successful, right? I'm not telling you get up at 5, have a green shake, run for 4 miles, read 12 pages. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you define what a win is. So like if you have a bout of depression and you can't ever get out of bed before noon, well, if you woke up today at 11, you just won.
Move a wristband.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, you don't have to get up at 5:00 in the morning to be a winner. For you, getting up at 11 might be winning. Or if you are getting a 64-ounce soda every day and you know you shouldn't, but you can't stop, if you get a 20-ounce today, that's a win. right? And so the book's really for anyone. Like if you want to make those small improvements, and eventually you're going to go from a 64 ounce to a water. Like you will get there eventually, but those are on your terms.
Yeah. I think the most important thing that you said, well, not the most important, but the thing I loved the most about it was you gave the spreadsheet away for free, and that's what kickstarted this whole thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, did you think that this would balloon into something, or is it just,
no,
I'm sure it was genuinely trying to help people.
Yeah. Cause at the time of the spreadsheet, I didn't even I had no inclination of doing a book or any, that was never even on my mind. And then when COVID hit, and then I realized oh, okay, this is what I need to do. This is how I can make it work. And then I thought, oh shit, this is a really good idea. This could actually be something. And I even said oh, I'm going to write a book about this. And then I'm a big believer in the universe and the things that you say you're going to do and the energy that you put out. The universe wants us all to succeed, right? But the problem is sometimes we say we want something, but our actions aren't indicative of that. And so we think oh, I'm just doomed for failure. But it's no, the universe gave you an opportunity and you said, nah, I'm just going to watch Netflix instead.
I want to be comfortable.
Yeah, right. And so if the universe sees you doing the things that you even for me with this book, I was I got to get on podcasts, I didn't know how to get on podcasts. I'd never done that before. Didn't know if I could. And now I'm going to be on 10 in the next 30 days, because the universe sees me putting in that work and making an effort. And so, we're reading a book with our company, with Vibrant. All of our leadership teams are reading books. And my business partner, Breck, calls me one Sunday and says, dude, you got to write a book. Everything you've said is in this book right now. I feel I'm just reading your words. And I was yeah, I know. I really got to do that. I want to do that. The next day on LinkedIn, my publisher reached out and said, hey, we're interested in having a conversation with you about a potential book, which I know stemmed from that LinkedIn post, which was, like you said, it was fully genuine. I didn't even have a following really.
Right. You're if 5 people reach out and I give it to 2, great.
I wasn't doing anything special. And so it's just amazing how life works. And when you really believe in that, I think, and you put your intention out there and you take advantage of the opportunities the universe provides, then I feel it will just keep providing until your actions are indicative that you no longer want that thing you said you wanted.
What you just did for me is you just explained that winners win. And that's how they do it.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people will say, a lot of inspirational speakers, coaches, athletes, winners win and losers lose type of thing, right? I'm stealing that from Eric Thomas. That's what he says.
Sure.
So he says winners win, and you just explained the blueprint to winners win.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's so simple. You just put it so simple. And people think it's this extravagant culture huge thing, and it can be, and it would be if you implement these things.
Sure.
But it's not a 100% total rehaul. It's better today, better tomorrow, win this, win that. Yeah.
Well, and also, I think a part of it too, when you think about longevity, is that people just give up too soon.
Yeah.
When you started, we're on episode 85. If on 4, you were I don't know if it's working.
Right.
It's how do you know? Alex Hormozi has a great quote. It's in my book. I can't remember what it is, but it's if you can do something for a month, you can be good. If you do something for 90 days, you can be great. And if you can do something for 365 days, you can be excellent, And it's so true. If you're willing to keep putting in the work and also being willing to lose along the way. I think that what can get lost in my conversations is that I don't expect to or advocate for winning always. We will in life, and I certainly have. You're going to take L's all the time, if you're a door knocker, you're going to get told no 1,000 times, but every no gets you that much closer to a yes. If you're in sales, you got to take a hell of a lot of no's before you get a yes. And so that's a part of it. It's kind of I talk in the book about if we were playing checkers and I jumped you first, you wouldn't be okay, you win.
Yeah.
We'd finish the game, you're going to get knocked down. You're going to fail. Bad things are going to happen. But if you've got the commitment to push through that's really when you learn. And I think we learn more in losses too. If you think back to a Super Bowl just happened, so we'll say that. The Eagles are going to learn more in that loss because they're going to go back and reflect. Man, what did we do wrong? How do we let Mahomes get those touchdowns? What happened to that holding penalty? But the Kansas City Chiefs, they're just getting smashed on a bus.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about how they could have been better. You know what I mean? Right. And so I think losses give us the opportunity to look back and improve. And so I think losses are more important perhaps than wins, because I think that's when we learn the most.
But how do you get in that mindset to be able to accept a loss though? So that's a thing that took me a long time to learn and to figure out. And I never understood that like the way I put it is you need to pencil in losses. Like you need to be aware that this is going to happen and not let it crumble you.
Right.
So how do you get in that mindset? Do you think of, hey, I'm out here trying to win. And when you take a loss, it doesn't just shut you down.
I think my answer, people won't like it. And I say this in my book, like it's kind of difficult because I think people want what I'm saying to be like more relevant or more important. And it's just not, it's simple. But if you're present, then it doesn't matter. Because like if you and I play checkers right now and you beat me, then that loss is already now in the past. I can't change it. There's no point in putting energy on it. I'm not going to think about it because the only thing that matters now is really actually right now. And I'm not even going to dwell about like the next game of checkers that we're going to play in a week from now. Like, oh God, Derick just beat me in checkers. Like we play again next Thursday. I really don't want to be, because what is that doing? That does nothing for me.
Yeah.
You know, what I should do is go read a book on the best tricks in checkers, you know, like right now in the present moment. So I think when you're present, it allows everything to have less importance, because you don't want wins to give you an inflated sense of ego or accomplishment either, where it's like, oh, I just sold this $10,000 safe. Like I'm gonna do that every day.
Right.
No, you just sold one right now. Enjoy it, because the moment is, once the sale is done, the moment's over. You got to go sell it again, you know? And so I think being present allows you to not fret about the past and not put too much energy into the future.
Well, I think that's the duality about the present is like, you need to take that moment and feel that emotion, good or bad, but then you need to learn how to move on.
Absolutely. And I think that's where people struggle the most.
Exactly. Yeah. Being able to put it in the rear view, but then take down the rear view.
Absolutely.
Just keep driving forward.
And
right?
not to forget it, right? Not to say like, oh, I'm just going to take that out of my mind, but just not put any energy trying to figure out like, how could I have fixed it? How could I have changed it? Like just take the lessons that you got,
right,
and then move forward.
Yeah. But take the lessons.
The lessons.
Feel the emotion, take the lessons, and then move forward.
Absolutely.
I love that. So I have this struggle, man, with big goals or small goals. And what's better to do? Are you better to take Grant Cardone and 10x everything? Or are you better to, I guess you're basically telling us already. Now I've answered
No,
my
it's
question,
both. No, it's both.
Go ahead and
I think that, so you got to have that big, hairy, audacious goal. That's Jim Collins' good, great, right? Like I want you to set a goal for yourself that's got a 50-50 chance of happening, but it can't be like a month from now, right? I think too often we're like, oh, I'm going to be this person in 6 months or in 1 year, right? I think humans have an ability to overestimate what we can do in a year, but underestimate what we can do in 3 years. So have a big, audacious, hairy goal 3 years down the road, right? And know like, this is where I'm going. I'm going to be the biggest podcast, or whatever it is. I'm gonna be the number one vault salesperson. I'm gonna be the number one door knocker. Or I'm gonna create a YouTube channel. I'm gonna have 1 million subscribers. Have that goal. And I want it to be like legitimately 50-50. Like maybe I can do it, maybe I can't, because you got to have something you're striving for. But that goal is 3 years down the road. So that's like your flag that you can see that's just way down the road. And then you just got to know, what are the little things I got to do every day to get me there? Because we know them. Like instinctually, we know as humans, how do we live our best life? And that answer is different for everyone. But we know, like if I've got this target 3 years down the road, I do know instinctually what I have to do to get there. But can I do it for the next 900 or 1,000 days? And if you can, I think you'll get there. And if you don't, you're going to be damn successful either way.
Right.
Because if it's big enough and you miss, you're still going to be way further ahead than you were 1,000 days ago.
See, and I've never been like a write it down goal guy. This is the first year I've ever wrote my goals down, and I printed them, laminated them. I've got like 3 copies of them. But I've always just known where I wanted to be. But I was always about setting realistic goals, because I didn't want to set this huge goal and then be let down. And then I had it explained to me that if you set a $10 million in sales goal, and you're realistically think you could do 2, but if you set 10 and you act every day as if you're going to be 10 and you end up selling 5, that's a win.
Absolutely.
It's not a loss. And so I think that's different of how people need to think about big goals.
Well, and I would say be unrealistic, right? Because like the Wright brothers, it was unrealistic for them to think that we could fly a plane. It was unrealistic to think we could have electricity. It was unrealistic for Joe Rogan to have a bigger voice than CNN. Like all of those things were unrealistic. And so it's only unrealistic until it happens. So I'm all for it. I think your goal should be 100% unrealistic, because I don't think that's the space we should live in. Like the universe will really give us, I believe, whatever we want. And I even noticed that for myself. In fact, that's a good story. in the middle of writing my book, we were in the office one day and I can't remember what book we're reading, but we're sharing thoughts from the book again. I said, you know what? I realized for me, like I just didn't want enough. Like I had pretty humble beginnings as a kid. And so, and my parents, my dad was they were teachers first and then an entrepreneur. So like I had that roller coaster life, right? Of like, things are good, things are bad, things are good, things are bad. And so all I really wanted was stability. So that's what I was going for. Right. And I had this really nice, but small 900 square foot house, 893 to be exact. My mortgage was $600 and like things were just nice. Like it was nice and average and it was easy and I had no stress. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, that's not what I actually want. That was just like the easy thing to attain.
Yeah.
And I've always gotten everything I wanted. So what am I doing? I was like, I'm just going to dream bigger. And man, since that day, my life has been wild. Like now we've got this beautiful home and I've got my dream car and this amazing company. And now I'm a published author. It's like all these wild things have happened. And my actions are literally the exact same. The only thing that changed were my thoughts. And I believe you change your mind, you change your life.
Yeah. I spoke in a classroom a little bit ago in a high school. And that was our first thing we did was if you change your thoughts, you change your life, you change your life, you change your income, you change your income. And we just kind of let them build that list of what it was. And it's so true. Cause now that I've kind of tweaked my mindset this way 5 years ago, when I sit around other people that aren't that way, that do complain,
sure.
Yeah. It almost like annoys me. Like I just can't sit there and listen to it. And I'm just like, if you understood that if you just took ownership of this one thing that happened, and let's say it was A and B's fault, but if you just took ownership and moved on, where would you be now? 4 years down the road, you're still in the same spot.
Right. Yeah, no, it's tough.
Me.
That's hard.
And so when you're writing your book, I'm curious, how long did it take? How many drafts did you have to do? What's the process of that?
The funny answer to that is a lifetime, because this is about my life, right? But the real answer is it took about 2 years from when like I said, okay, I'm going to do this, to it was actually printed and like you could purchase it. Is about a 2-year process.
Okay. And did you do certain drafts? I mean, what's the process of doing that?
So my publisher had a ghostwriter that helped me. And so what we did first is I gave him the premise, like, this is what I believe, this is what I think. And then we said, okay, so that's what we're trying to accomplish. Now let's talk about what we need to do inside of that. And so we built out the chapters, right?
Okay.
Like these are the things I want to talk about. These are how I'm going to hit on them. And I, for me, it's important to say like, and if you go into like Amazon, you read the reviews, you'll see this. It rings pretty true. It's like, I don't have anything special to say or anything new really, because anything worth being said has been said by someone somewhere. I'm just repurposing other people's thoughts and emotions in a way that I believe to be more digestible, right? So like the more I read, I got really into reading and like educating myself. And I told Breck one day, I said, you know what I realized, man, is the only thing that I know is that I don't know anything. Because you can read David Goggins' book on leadership, and then you could read Brené Brown's book on leadership, and those two books couldn't be more separate, but they're both great leaders. So who's right? They both are,
right.
So the more I educated myself, the more I realized like, I don't know shit. And I thought that was really profound. And I was like, yeah, this is deep. I'm proud of myself. Turns out Marcus Aurelius said that like at the beginning of human time, so it's like, I don't have anything special to give. And so, I'm really ultimately just repurposing information. I'm using my life stories to say, like I said earlier about 2008, you can tell a story however you want. And so what happened with the cell phone guy, it was a part of Alltel, for those of you who are old enough to remember that. And Alltel got bought by Goldman & Sachs. And so I knew Goldman & Sachs did not buy this wireless company to own a wireless company. Like that's not what they do. They buy and they sell and they make money. And at the time, their stock was the most valuable in wireless. And so I knew, and they had this really great network. And so I knew they were going to chop that network up and sell it to like whoever had the holes that needed to get patched. And so for that reason, then I put my business up for sale because I knew that was coming, but it wasn't like out there. I just knew it, right? And so I was able to sell my business in April of 2008. And then we all know the economy crashed in October. So I could tell the story, like I could see the economic crash was coming and I wanted to exit. And that's not true, but I could tell the story that way. But instead, I'd rather stick to reality and show like, look, it was just me being aware of what was happening and making some good decisions, but I wasn't Nostradamus. I didn't know, but I did have my ear to the ground and I'm connected to the universe. And so those things allowed me to make a really good decision. And when I go and like talk to college students about Vibrant, I could tell a story that like we're this ultra successful management company, Or I could tell the story that like we started and didn't really know what we were doing. And one time we only had $11.37 in our checking account, and I had to close an invoice to be able to just keep the company alive for another couple of weeks. You know, that's the story that people really want to hear. Like what's the nitty gritty of what really happened? And so that's what I try and do in my book, is just give those stories of like what really happened. So then after we set the chapters, then I'd have my call with my ghostwriter. His name was Steve. And we would talk for an hour like you and I are right now. He'd be like, okay, this chapter is, I know nothing. What do you want to talk about? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I could talk about this. And you just kind of get going on a conversation, and he's dictating it all. And then when that's done, everything we've said has been like dictated out. And then he takes it and puts it into like a story form. And then he sends it to me and says, make the edits that you want, the alterations. And so then there are also times that I was writing it too. But what was the funny about it is I'd be telling a story like you and I are now. And I might tell a story about Breck. And then I read it and I'm like, oh shit, I better make sure Breck's okay with me telling that story, you know? So it was a really fun process. And I realized how vulnerable I was being, because I'm really sharing all of these things. And it's like, man, people may hate it, you know, like that's kind of scary because like it's just out there. But overall, it was an awesome process. I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah, I think being vulnerable, and that's what this podcast has been for me. It's almost been like a little bit of therapy session for me.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it's the stories we've had told on here and the stuff that people have shared. I'm just like, man, I just don't know if you get that. Like just bros sitting around the fire or something, you know, like
sure.
People, I don't know what it is about coming on a podcast and sitting down, but we've even had people be like, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. and they'll say something, and which is cool, man. It's like, people are coming on here. Like I said in the beginning, before we started, I'm like, I'm just kind of the guide. You do your thing and we'll get through it. And
yeah.
And, I don't know. The podcasts are an interesting thing. It's a weird platform.
Well, like Joe Rogan always says, like, this has been the best education of my life.
Yeah.
You know, like I've gotten so much information. And I think too often how many people ever sit down with a stranger? Because that's what you and I are.
Right.
We just met, 30 minutes ago.
Right.
How many people sit down with a stranger and have a conversation? Like a meaningful, like I'm intently listening to you. You're intently listening to me. Like how often do we do that? Typically, if you get with a stranger, you look at your phone and pretend like there's something important on it, so you don't have to engage with them.
Yeah, you need to talk right now.
So I think that's the value, and I think that's why you're getting that, is because we, as human beings, we want to share our stories and we want to connect with other people. But for some reason, like this microphone and these headphones give us the excuse to do that. Where if you and I were to like bump into each other at a Walmart, we wouldn't be having a conversation.
Yeah,
you know.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, so it just creates this platform. I think that's really great. I think it's awesome that you're doing it.
Yeah, I think next thing, I don't know, man, a book would terrify me. I mean, were you scared to do it? Or
I wasn't really scared to do it until I started doing it. And then like once you read a chapter, like when I read my first chapter, it was like, oh shit, like I better think of something good to say, you know, like it was like a lot of pressure. Like sometimes before my Thursday morning meeting, it's like, oh God, you know, but then once you get into it, kind of like our conversation now, it just becomes natural and it just flows. But it was definitely hard and scary to think like, gosh, you know, like what are people going to think of me, you know, or is anyone even going to care? You know, like I might put all this work into it and then no one cares. And like I had one of my friends who had read it, and her sister was going through a hard time, and she was like, you know what, read this book. And she read it, and that gave her the motivation to jumpstart. And she was in a job she didn't like, and it motivated her to go, and she filled out like 100 applications, connected with everyone on LinkedIn, like was like, I'm going to do it. And she's like, yeah, your book totally snapped her out of the funk. And it was like, even now, if nothing else happened but that, it's like, that's awesome. Yeah. You know, like it gave me the opportunity to make a difference in someone's life. And ultimately for me, I want to be able to speak and to talk to more people. I want to make a difference. And I think that life is amazing. And so many people look at life and say, life sucks, life's hard. Like you're born, you work, you die. And it's like, that's not true at all. You know, like how can I help change that perception and let people find joy in their life? Because we only get one of them and it's not really that long. And so let's maximize it. And hopefully the book will create the platform for me to be able to get in front of more people and make a difference. That's what I want to do.
When I started this, I thought it was going to be extremely rare and hard to find someone that wants to come on and genuinely wants to help people. And what I've learned doing this we're coming up on 2 years.
Yeah.
That's extremely common for people that want to help someone. They just don't know how, don't have the platform, don't have, or your excuses, right? Like don't have the funds, don't have the connections, whatever. And that's one thing it's given me more hope that everything's going to be all right. And people out there, actually, there's good people out there, and there's more good people than shitty people.
Absolutely. And you're giving them a chance to start, right? Because so often that's really what it comes down to. Like, I think in the last part of my book, it's like the last piece of advice, and you're not going to like it, is just start. Like, how do you make a difference? How do you do this thing? How do I get started? And it's like, the answer is literally to start. Like, there's no magical equation. Like, just do the thing you want to do. So I talk at SU to the hospitality students, and this one student was like, well, what's your keys to success? And I said, well, it's really irrelevant what my keys to success are, because it only matters what your keys to success are. So like, why don't you define that first, and then let's have a conversation about what that looks like. And so he shared that he wanted to start a popcorn business, and he's like, so what should I do first? And I was like, start the popcorn business.
Like, do you have a popcorn machine?
Yeah, like, sell it to the students. Like, I don't care how you do it, but start it. Get your name, get your LLC, get a microwave. Like, I don't know how you're going to make it, what's going to be unique about it, but do that thing and start. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm in school now, and I thought, like, I'll get through school. And it's like, why wait till you get through school? Why not start now and learn the lessons along the way? And I always joke, the professor, AJ at SUU, I say, I appreciate you letting me come and talk to your students, because most of my advice is counterintuitive to your establishment. Right. But I'm glad that you allow me an opportunity to share my platform. And I'm not advocating like, hey, just drop out. But I am advocating, if there's something that you want to do that thing.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. It's one of the first conversations that Mallory and I, producer Mallory, Blue Form Mallory for people that aren't familiar, because I can't get her to come and sit in front of the camera and do an episode. But she'll probably cut that out. I forgot she has control of that. One of the first conversations that we had, that's where she was kind of at, is she was doing a podcast for someone else. I was on their podcast.
Okay.
And I reached out to her and said, hey, I've always thought about doing one, but I need you. Like, is there another you out there that you can connect me with? And she's like, well, I would do it. I'd do yours. And so I was like, cool, let's go sit down, and, I don't even know how this works. So let's sit down and figure this out. And so we actually went and got breakfast, me, Mallory, and Blake, and we kind of talked about, what do you do? How do you start? How do you do all this? She says, all these business people I get in front of through the podcast that I'm already running, I've asked them, what do you do? And they just say, you start.
Yeah.
And she's like, but I don't know what that means, like, cool. Yeah. So I start, but what is it? And I said, you got to understand, like, I mean, I've been self-employed for, 14 years now. And so I'm like, how many times I've been like pitched an idea or asked, what do I do first, or what do I do next? And I'm like, I can weed out 99% of the people by saying you need to start.
Right.
And then I'm like, and after that, I'll see if you start. If you start, hey, let's go sit down, and I can walk you through, and I can help whatever way I can, or I can make the connections for you that I can make. So starting it, and that's with anything. It's not just business. It's anything. Like you're saying, start getting up on time. Don't hit snooze, right?
Absolutely.
Just starting. I mean, it's so simple, dude, but it's so funny how people confuse it.
I used to laugh with my ghostwriter, Steve. I was like, Steve, I just think people are going to be pissed because they're going to read the whole book and be like, that's it? Like, because it's pretty easy, like, make a good decision. Like, that's not rocket science. Certainly someone else has said that before, Yeah. And obviously has some tangible things that make it a little more trackable. Sure. But at the end of the day, the key is, like, you have to start, like, put the bracelets on and make a good decision today, you know? And then, like, well, what decision should I make? It's like, well, that's not me to decide. Like,
how does your morning go?
Yeah, right. You know what you want to do in life.
Well, I like how you said it kind of goes to anyone, because it's, if you have a hard time brushing your teeth in the morning, then that's it. 100%. But if you have a hard time making 20 phone calls and closing 3 accounts, then that's what it is for you. So it's totally scalable from situation to situation.
Yeah, and sometimes for me too, it's just like, okay, I need to focus for an hour, right? And so it's like, okay, 7:30, I'm going to focus for 1 hour, and at 8:30, I can like take a break and go chat with the people in the office or something. But then I'll focus for that hour, move the bracelet, and then I feel like, and like, if you've ever had a checklist, right? It feels good to check the things off. And if you have something that you did that's not on the checklist, most people will write that thing down just so they can check it off. Like, as humans, we like rewards, and that's the idea, is having this visual reward. And then also you can create a community. It's like, if this thing really works, if it really takes off, and you are coming home from work, or you're like on the subway and you see the guy next to you and you're like, oh, you're winning the moment too. And you start having a conversation and they start supporting you. And like the people in my office, we're coming back from Kanab the other day, and there's a Dairy Queen in Hurricane I love to stop at because I love ice cream. and I didn't. And they're like, oh, dude, move your bracelet. Because I made the comment, like I would have stopped before. And they're like, oh yeah, move your bracelet. So then you've got like these people supporting you that can look at your bracelets and say like, oh, did you win the moment today? Like, how are you doing? And so once you can get like a community involved in that, whoever your sphere of people is, then you're going to even be more successful, because now you've got like this visual thing on your wrist where it's like, oh, how's your day going? So it can really be something.
So is that what you think the next step is with this? Is it building that community? Have you already done that? Is there an app coming out? Is there...
I would love to have it. I don't know how to get there yet. So I'm starting it, right? Just starting by trying to reach out to as many like-minded people who are interested in growth and development, and just trying to build those relationships with them. And then if it all pans out and I get to that place, especially if I do talks, right? Because if I can get in front of an audience of 1,000 people and give my bracelets away for free, then certainly if 10 of them take it, that's 10 more people that had it than before, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that my ultimate goal would be to be able to have that community of people who can support each other and help each other be their best version of themselves. Because when you have that accountability partner,
Right.
You're always more successful, right? Like if I ever did go to the gym, it's when someone else was meeting me there. Right? If I was going by myself, forget it. But if I had a friend who's waiting in the cold for me at 7:00 in the morning, then I will show up.
Letting
right?
him down.
Absolutely right.
Exactly.
Oddly enough, we'll show up for other people before ourselves. So I think for it to really be successful, if I can ever get it to that point, then it could really be something special.
So for me, I kind of want to switch gears right here. For me, a big thing of what I've been able to accomplish is my wife. My wife has a good job. She's a nurse practitioner. So it allows me to take a lot of more risks, because
absolutely
she's pretty much got the bills taken care of, right? So tell me a little bit about Megan. Tell me about the family. What did they go through? How did they support you?
That's a great question.
I love that you just lit up right there.
Yeah, it's a great.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Question, because I met Megan when she was really young. So she was 17 when I met her, and I was 18, and she didn't have a lot of life experience, obviously, because she didn't have a lot of life. And even though I was a little bit older, I had just like made that conscious decision at a young age. Like my friends used to joke, like I was like retired guy at 18. Like I would stay home and read, like I was driven. I wanted these things. And so I was always like just doing those things that grownups are doing at a young age. Right. So I had this experience. And so I gave that to her, and I got promoted shortly after we were together. And so we moved to Phoenix together. So she left St. George. She'd never been out of St. George before, moved to Phoenix with me, and I built a house down there. We did that together. And then she got into the corporate world, like in a real bit, like she worked at AT&T, a really big corporate position. It was like making real money for the first time in her life. And so people laugh about this, but I charged her rent when she lived with me, and not because I needed the money, but because I wanted to teach her financial intelligence, right? Like I couldn't have her just think like, oh, I can just spend all of my paycheck. She needed to learn that, because she hadn't yet, because she was so young. That hadn't been a thing she'd done. And so she would pay rent, and I would be teaching her all these lessons. And then we were like, all right, let's start a family. So we moved back to St. George. She got pregnant with my daughter, Olivia, and I had gotten recruited by this wireless company to come fix the market here. And once I got here, I was like, oh man, I remember why I left St. George. It's too small. And once my daughter came, I was like, okay, like I got to turn it up. Like I got a kid now, like I got to be a better supporter. And I was like, this job's never going to be it. So then I started that marketing company with a couple of my really good friends. And so we moved to Houston when my daughter was 6 months old, to start a company from scratch with no guarantee of anything. We had a contract with the Houston Astros. We were doing publication marketing for the Wall Street Journal and the Houston Chronicle. We only knew we had a job for 6 months, basically, right? And if we're good, it could be longer. And then we ended up getting San Antonio and Dallas and Phoenix and Cincinnati and Denver and Vegas and San Diego and LA. So we grew this huge marketing company. And then when my wife got pregnant with my son, it was like, all right, let's go back home. Like, it's time to get back to St. George. Let's get to our roots. Like, I want to be around family. So we came back to St. George. And then that's when Megan really started to like blossom and develop, and started to like have, for the lack of better words, like her own opinion about things. Right. And so she would like go to these things with her friends, and she'd come back and just be like lighting up. Like, you're never going to believe what they told me, this, that, and this. I was like, yeah, I know. I've been telling you that for a decade. She's like, yeah, but you wouldn't understand. I was like, no, I do understand. Like, they're talking about this book. It's right here. I wanted you to read this book. And it was so frustrating for me, because it was like, she valued what they were saying more than what I was saying. And I didn't realize until I had the ability to see the bigger picture that she just wasn't ready for it when I was giving it to her, right? She had to find it at her time. So I was really like her guide, like shepherding her through life. And she was behind me as I was like guiding her. And then she started standing next to me. And it sounds terrible, but I was like, whoa, like what are you doing? Like I lead, you follow.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's how this works, And she's like, not anymore.
Right.
Like we're together. And it was hard, that was a hard shift in our relationship. And at that point we'd probably been together like maybe 14 years. And it was like, I really struggled. She's like, look, this is me now. Like I found who I am. I found my voice. Like we can still be together, or if you don't like it, then I'm going to keep being me. I'm never going back. And I was like, damn, like I see you, and I finally was able to appreciate, like, obviously it's so much better to have her with me than for her to be behind me. But after having so long of me guiding her through it, it was like this really hard thing for us. And now I couldn't be happier. And I'm so thankful that she had that growth, because now we're like this real team, where it's like we're bouncing things off of each other. She's supporting me, I'm supporting her. And we truly are this team nucleus. And I actually share that story in the book because I think it's so important, because I think that it's having your family unit, having your partner, having your children, like being whole, I think is so important. I think a lot of what we see in struggles is like, if you don't have if there's like not a father figure in the home, I think that really has a huge detriment to a family. And so I never, of course, want that for my family. And I think that people go through struggles, and too often it's easy to give up. It's just easier to just not do it, right? Or for me to stick to my guns and be like, it's got to be my way. And she was obviously sticking to hers. And if we couldn't have found that compromise, we wouldn't be together today. And we're both better off, and our kids are obviously better off because we did. And I just think it was a really important message to share, like how we got through that journey and how valuable it was for me to realize like the importance of that. And it sounds like you and your wife have that. And I think that anytime that you can find that and realize, like when I was in Vegas, where I had met this bride, and she's like, oh, you've been together for so long. What advice do you have? And I said, know that the person you're going to marry tomorrow will not be the same person 10 years from now.
And it shouldn't be.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, don't expect him to be the same in 10 years as he is today, because he won't, and neither will you. And if you guys can grow together, you can stay together. And so I think that's a really important message to share. But so love my wife. She's amazing. She works at Vibrant too, which is so cool that we get to work together. And she's a huge rock star on our team. And then my kids now, my son is 6 and my daughter's 9. So now they really get to thrive in life. My son's got he's been in a basketball league, and the championship tournament's this Saturday.
Awesome.
So he's got a chance to win his first championship. And it's been so fun to watch that. I love it. I love being his coach.
That's so cool, man. I love getting on here, and like family is a cool thing for me. My mom was my huge support growing up. She believed in everything I ever did. Like I hear people talk about, no one ever believed in me or whatever whatever that sentence goes. And I'm like, man, I never had that. Like my mom was always there. Like, yeah, you could do that. And I'm like, hey mom, I'm going to go push a lawnmower around and mow people's lawns. She's like, yeah, grab that one right there. Make sure you take a gas can with you. She was always like supporting me through everything. And then transitioning from that to like my family now with my wife, it was the same thing. Like she's like, dude, you're on a certain track. I'm on a certain track. I'm doing the college, I'm doing the medical stuff. You're trying to build your own thing. And we did it like at the same rate, but together.
Yeah. So, and totally separate paths
exactly.
too.
Like it wasn't like we were both studying at the same time.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
Like I've told the stories on here 100 times, but not 100. I'm only episode 85, but
85 times,
85 times about like being downstairs working, on a side hustle. My wife was upstairs doing homework.
Yeah.
And we would almost like see who was going to give up first,
Yeah,
so then it's like 1, 2 in the morning, and I'd either be folding it up and going to bed because I was giving up, or she would be giving up and going to bed. But it pushed us along the way. Like we rode that roller coaster together.
Yeah. I love those stories.
And I mean, I actually get a lot of flack on social media when I talk about me and my wife and what we've built, because they're like, that exact story. People are like, oh, it sounds like you had a 2-story house. Must be nice. And it always makes me laugh. And I'm like, you don't even know, man.
Oh, yeah.
When I was working my 3rd job in the basement. Yeah, it was super cush.
I think that's what's so important too, because Meg and I have been together for so long. So like we've had the good times, we've had the bad times. We had just like that roller coaster I talked about before. And so it's like when you can make it through that with someone, that partnership is so valuable. You know, like she's truly my best friend, and to be able to raise our kids together and also have her work at Vibrant as well. It's like I'm so fortunate that we did make it through that, because I couldn't I wouldn't do it with anyone else, you know. And so it's been a pretty awesome journey.
Well, and how many people would have just thrown the towel? Yeah, dude, we're different now. You know, you grew, I grew, we grew apart. That's kind of a
absolutely.
word, right?
Yeah.
It's like we grew apart. Now, let's throw in the towel.
And that would have been easier.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because it was such an adjustment, and it's almost embarrassing to tell the story now because I see how short-sighted I was, you know, to even be frustrated that that someone else telling her the exact same thing I told her was more valuable to her, because that was just like my ego.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that was about me. It had nothing to do with her. It was all about me. And so I had to really put my ego to the side and say, all that really matters is she got the information and she grew.
Right.
But it was so hard to see that, like, when there's this huge shift, you know? And so even though I hate telling the story because I don't love how I handled it, I think it's so valuable because I know there's other people who are going through those similar shifts and struggles. And I think it's an important message to share.
Yeah, but you're supposed, like, that's how you know you're growing. If you can look back and have that acknowledgement and be able to share it. I mean, being able to see it and be able to share it's even two different things.
Absolutely.
And when I was talking to that high school class, I was telling them, like, who I was when I was your guys' age. Like, I laugh at that person now. You know, like you're supposed to grow.
Right.
The things I wanted when I was 18 is not what I wanted when I'm 33. Like all these things change.
Yeah.
You're supposed to learn.
So true.
These things are supposed to be fluid. You know, hopefully you're always wanting something better, right? And you're always moving positive.
Well, that's a good message too. So that's something I talk about in the book, is like, there is no finish line. So stop trying to get there.
Yeah.
Because it's always moving. You know what I mean? Like, you think, oh, once I get this house, I'll be happy. Well, once you're in that house, then you're like, now you have new means. So it's like, oh, actually, I want this house with a pool. And then you get that and you're like, well, actually, I want a basement and a pool. Yeah. You know? And so, like, you can never, like, you can't arrive at success. It's this everlasting thing that you're always shooting for. And so I think too often people think like, oh, once I get there, I'll be happy. And I think that you have to be really cautious to strive after I'll be happy win moments, because again, you're not living in the present. And if your happiness is predicated on something other than yourself, you're never going to have it anyways. So find your happiness in what you're doing right now. Yeah. And if you can do that, you'll be happy when.
I'll be honest. That was me a year ago. Like, we had built our dream home. I drew the entire thing. It's sitting on a view lot in St. George. We see we see Pine Valley, we see Snow Canyon, we can see a little bit of Zion, like, you can see everything. And it was everything I'd ever wanted in a house. And we were doing good financially. We had our son, and I'm just thinking like, all right, this is it, dude. I did it all. And it almost like took me in this depression of like,
no, I can relate to that.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there thinking like, this is it. Like, well, so what's next? Like, I'm 33. What's next? And don't get me wrong. I mean, I have leaps and bounds of growth that I can do. But it's
in that moment you had those things. Yeah, no, I totally get it, because I felt I had the exact same revelation in my house. Finally built this dream home. I had everything I could want. I'm sitting there looking at my fireplace and I'm like, I don't feel successful. Yeah. You know, but like, had you told me at 20, like, hey, guess what? At 35, you're going to have this, that, and the other thing. I'd have been like, hell yeah, like, sign me up. That's what I'm talking about. And then you get it. And it's like, oh, because there's so much more journey ahead of us. Right. And so that's probably, we didn't set unrealistic enough goals because we met them like so early in our adulthood, you know, like, we've got 30, 40 more years of opportunities ahead of us. So there's so much more we can accomplish than we ever even thought were real. Right. When we were 18 years old, you know? So I had that exact same experience.
Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah. It's good to know you're not alone.
When I remember calling my brother and being like, this is it, huh? Like, this is, I mean, because I had that thought before we had our son. I was like, we're making the money I never thought I would make. We're building our house at the time she was pregnant. We were building it. And I was just like, this is it. Like, we've done it. And I was like, what's next? And my brother would sit me down and kind of, okay, dude, you got to get to here now. This is what you need to do. Oh, dude, wouldn't a cabin be sweet? Maybe that's a goal now, you know, and start putting these things in front of me to look forward to. And luckily I've got my brother Adam that's kind of given me a little, I'm not really a vision guy. And so he's able to kind of put that vision in front of me.
That's great. You got to have a visionary in your life. It's funny. So Vibrant operates on a thing called EOS. It's called Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's predicated on having a visionary and an integrator. And it says like, if you can have each of those things, then like your business can really take off. You know, my business partner, Breck, is a full-fledged visionary through and through. Like, always got all these crazy ideas. And then it's my job to say like, oh, okay, so 10 of those ideas are awesome, but one of them we can do.
Yeah.
Let's do that one.
Let's implement this.
Yeah.
See, and that thing, that's where I would be, because that was always my value in the business or in a partnership, was like, well, what do you bring to the table? I'm like, I'll do it. Like, I don't talk about things, I do things.
I start.
Yeah, I start. Exactly. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming, man. That's your book. I think your book's going to take off. I love that it's open to anybody. Anybody can read it at any level.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, like you said, dude, if you're having a hard time getting out of bed, or if you want to do the $1 million this year. I mean, at any level you can do it.
Yeah, even one of my coworkers, she was like, "Man, I'm gonna make my daughter read it." I think she was like 14 or something. She's like, she needs this message.
Yeah, I love it. Tell us where we can get the book, how we can get in front of you, Instagram, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, if you just go to Google pretty much and Google Cody Adent, CODYADENT, it'll basically pull me up on all kinds of different places. You can buy the book basically anywhere books are sold. So I say if you have a favorite place, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, whatever that is, go buy it there. You can also buy it from me on my website at codyadent.com. If you buy it from me, I'll sign it for you and I'll send it to you. But ultimately, any level of support is awesome. I'm on all of those platforms. Then if you want to learn more about Vibrant Management, you can go to thevibrantteam.com, and you can also get to the Vibrant Team from codyadent.com too. So either way, but I'd love to connect with anyone who wants to chat.
Well, there's no excuse not to support, because even if you say, if your excuse is you can't afford the book or you can't afford anything, just share it. Share this message. Get on here, share the podcast, tag Cody in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I'm on Instagram, right? And I'm like connecting to these book feeds, and I'll see someone say like, "Oh, I'd love to read this book, but I don't have any money." And so I'll comment to him and I'll say, "I'll send you my book for free."
There you go.
Because I mean, obviously I want to sell it, but if someone can't afford it, I'll send you the PDF for free. Like, it's more important to me you get the message than I get the money.
I mean, it goes back to your spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's where the beginning came from.
Yep.
Love it,
You've
dude.
got a good idea, give it away for free.
Yeah. Anything else?
No,
else you
that's
want
it.
to cover?
I appreciate it. It was a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. I'm glad I met you. I'm happy. I'm excited to read the book, and we should do a follow up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We should go down the road, dude.
Yeah,
do a follow up with you.
I'd love to do that.
Okay. All right, guys. That's episode 85. I almost said 87. Episode 85. Cody Adent, and go check out the book, Winning the Moment.
Correct.
Winning the Moment. I had to look at it for a second. I was second guessing myself. Yeah, Winning the Moment. Is there an audiobook? Is there going to be an audiobook?
No, you know what? And it's funny. I've never done audiobooks. So like I didn't realize it was like this big thing.
Okay.
And that's the number one question I get asked, but I got to record it. So it's like I got to find the time to get into a studio and do this in front of a microphone. But I will do it because so many people want it. So I don't have it yet, but I will.
Awesome. Okay. Audiobook to come. So stay tuned on that. All right, guys. Thanks for being here with us. Appreciate you. Love you guys. Make sure you like, share. Our big pump right now is to get follows on YouTube. So the big thing we're trying to push right now is YouTube followers. Thanks for interacting with us. Any questions, you can reach out to us on the Derick Lake podcast at any platform. Yeah. Love you guys. See you next week.